How you doing, everybody? ABC Action News Chief Meteorologist Dennis Phillips. The 11 o'clock advisory is in for Idalia, and it is exactly the same. Same intensity, still a tropical storm, 70 miles an hour. It's been sheared for the last 12 hours. It's having a real tough time getting going. Once it clears Cuba, it will, and that's when it's going to start to develop pretty quickly. And the track is also identical, to quote my cousin Vinny. Identical. I always do that. I love that movie. Anyway. Identical track, models are really tightly clustered now, so we're 24 to 30 hours out before landfall. It would be very surprising to see any kind of a dramatic change in either direction when you're 24 to 30 hours out. We're kind of past that. So at this point, it's becoming far more likely that the bulk of the wind will stay west of the Bay Area, west of the coast. It becomes far more likely the storm is going to get stronger and impact the Big Bend or the Panhandle on Wednesday morning and into the afternoon hours. The biggest concern for the Tampa Bay region is the storm surge. Storm surge is not rainwater, it's not flooding, it's when the storm pushes water from the Gulf into areas that there's no place for the water to go. And when that happens, the levels build up, whether it's the coast, whether it's the bay, whatever the case may be. Expecting a widespread storm surge issue for a good portion of the west coast of Florida. Lower southern areas, higher northern areas closer to landfall. The worst of the surge is always just to the right and front of where landfall occurs. Speaking of landfall, winds probably up to 120 miles an hour based on the current track from the Hurricane Center. But I'll tell you, in looking at the data with the Hurricane Center and looking at the model data for the Bay Area, I think those hurricane force winds stay offshore. I think the sustained hurricane force winds do not make it into the Bay Area. So there will be gusts that will be higher because there's hardly any friction as that air travels along the water. So it's not going to drop very much. But when that margin of error increases by 40, 50 miles because the center might be 80 or 90 miles offshore, you're just not going to see sustained winds of hurricane force, in my opinion. So I was about to do this video and I went on TikTok to look at it and I see all these videos. Oh, Cat 4. Oh, we're going to get a ton of wind and rain everywhere. It's going to be mayhem. On the Bay Area, it's not at least wind. Now, yes, water is the issue because you hide from the wind, you run from the water. And if you're in a mandatory evacuation area and you're along that coast, do yourself a favor and think long and hard whether you're going to stay put. Because that water can come up. And if you remember with Ada, several years ago, there were a lot of folks who never saw that coming, and in many spots, this will be worse than Tropical Storm Ada. So again, bottom line, still 70, no change to the track, models are tightly clustered. I would not expect a change on the 5 a.m. advisory, and then we're only 24 hours out. So for the Bay Area, east of I-75, 30, 35 miles an hour. Polk County, you're gonna luck out. You're not gonna get it this time. You usually do. The heavier wind will be along the coast, northern counties. Citrus, I'm afraid, is going to see some serious wind, but more than the wind, they are going to get water. That surge will travel all the way down the coast. If you live anywhere in Hernando or Pasco County, if you're west of US 19, you've got a legitimate chance to see flooding and significant flooding. If you live in Pinellas, west of Alt 19, you have a much better chance, or of course along the coast itself. Manatee, not as much, still closer to the coast. Inland areas, not a thing to worry about. Some tropical storm force winds. There will be some isolated tornadoes in the evening hours and overnight, Tuesday night into Wednesday. And that concerns us because, I mean, man, you lose power, it's scary enough as it is. And then all of a sudden you're hearing about tornadoes, which, by the way, if you lose power, you can still watch all of our broadcasts live on our streaming app. So make sure your phones are charged. Make sure you have a backup battery so you can charge your phones when they die if you've lost power, because there's nothing worse than being stuck in the middle of a storm, a hurricane, with no power and not having any idea what's happening. We will be simulcasting on local radio stations as well, but let's be honest, it's better to see what's going on out there, and on the app, you can do it. I'll be updating on all social media platforms as well as lots of live broadcasts to help keep you and your family safe as we go through what will likely be a Cat 2 or Cat 3 hurricane. You guys stay safe, and I'll give you an update coming up later in the morning.